Let's do it.
All right, Joe, what are we doing today?
What are we doing today?
We're talking about boots.
Again.
We're talking about boots again. I don't think we've done enough of it. So we're going to go through the low volume category.
Yep.
And we'll be doing some follow-up videos on the MV and HV categories. But right now, we're going to tackle the most popular boots in the LV category.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, Joe, where do you want to start?
Well, I think it's worth noting that you and I both typically ski in low volume boots.
That's right.
Both have more narrow feet. So this is a good one for us to do.
Should we drop our measurements?
Sure, feel free. What are your measurements? Are you comfortable saying it?
No, that's actually an inappropriate
question. I think I know yours. Yours are like what, 298?
I think I'm into the 3. I think I'm into
301, 298, 107 wide.
I think I'm a little wider.
I don't know if you are. You did this last time to yourself, and then you measured your feet, and you were like 106, 107.
Yeah, I was having a narrow day.
What are you skiing for a low volume boot right now?
Lange Shadow.
Okay.
Is what I'm running.
Why do you ski in that?
And I ski in that because it is a tight, snug, powerful boot without being it's not too aggressive.
It's good for you, just like hanging around.
Exactly.
Looks good in the lodge.
I'm not trying to be a hero out there. It has everything I need, but it's not uncomfortable.
Nice. Proud of you. The way we have these lined up in frame, if you're watching this on YouTube.
Wait, you didn't want me to hit you with what low volume boots do you ski in?
Sure, yeah.
All right, Joe, what low volume boots do you ski in?
Last year I skied in the Mach boot, the Fischer boot.
This is going to be a long last.
The Ultra, and then not pictured the Remedy, but that's kind of because it lives in a different category.
Yeah.
I've also skied in the Shadow, and I skied in the Alpha. So everything here I've skied in. Most of my time is spent in Ultra because it's a little bit more firm.
There we go.
And I have a tiny foot.
Yeah, you do.
So low volume.
What are your measurements?
269. Nice. And 100 wide.
Nice.
Average. I'm shelf size.
Yeah, perfectly average, which is completely okay.
So the low volume boots that we carry, these are our more popular models that we have in store. They all have roughly the same measurements. 98 millimeter lasts at a 26.5. The Lange Shadow is a stated 97 at a 26.5. All the boots that are lined up here are 130 flexes, aside from the 29.5 Alpha that Garrett will be throwing on his foot at some point, perhaps. But on paper, and this is like some of the stuff that we talk about during boot fits, you know, not all 130s are created equal. Obviously, like similar to when you're going to buy shoes, like Nikes fit different from Reeboks, Tecnicas fit different from Atomics, and so on and so forth. So we're just going to walk through some of the nuances that you might experience if you were to come in for a boot fit, or if you were to just buy something online and try it on at home, to give some context to what you might be able to expect out of the box. The way we have these lined up is, in our opinion, from softer, more supple liners from the Lange, and then down the line to Ultra with the more firm, dense liner. And those kind of, call it like aspects of fit and design choices, do differentiate how each of these boots fit from one another. Garrett, why don't you slide on? Why don't you start it? Why don't we both start in a Lange, just to give everyone a baseline?
Let's do it.
Actually, you know what? Why don't you start in the Lange, and I'll walk you through probably what you're going to feel.
Okay.
It's also what you're familiar with.
I am familiar with it.
So with the Lange boots,
I do have the previous generation of this boot.
Yes.
But this is just basically an upgraded version.
So with the Lange boots, what a lot of people like about them out of the box is, for a 130 flex boot, it is relatively easy to put on. Some of the things we warn people about before they slide their foot into a Lange boot is with the...
dude. That is so embarrassing.
So now that Garrett's got a sock on, the way that this Shadow fits...
Well, I had a sock on before.
Yeah. The way that this Shadow fits out of the box, some of the major areas of concern that people have are in pressure on the end of the toes, and a lot of that is blamed on the material that's used in the liner is just a little bit more dense out of the box and kind of like shrunken in compared to some of the other boot liners that are out there. Like Fischer toe box, Salomon toe box in particular has a softer neoprene on the end. This is a little bit more dense, rigid, and then the toe box is also more pointed. So why don't you slide that boot on?
And obviously, the folks at home can't feel the liners, but if you pull these liners out and do what Joe just did, it is very noticeable.
Yeah, but the rest of the liner, soft.
Yes.
In a good way. And that makes break-in shorter. It also helps to improve warmth. This is, of the boots that we're looking at right here, this is the warmest boot in the LV 130 lineup. Compared to the other 130s and LVs that we're going to try on, this is easier to put on. The plastic is a little bit more reactive to ambient temperature. Out in the cold, you can expect that Lange to stiffen up relatively considerably. I think the number is like 3.4 times compared to how it feels at room temp. Some of the other things that people will notice at room temp when they're trying these boots on is they feel kind of soft flexing. That's also that blend of plastic that's used. And the way that Lange has set up the spine of this boot, it's different than everything else that we're going to look at. So you don't have a fully pinned kind of spine that's noticeable here, here, sort of here. It's this long blade, which is called suspension blade, and that is this part of the boot is the lower part of the shell, and this is actually connected to the lower part of the shell that connects to the cuff, and it allows for a little bit more of like a smooth, kind of natural flex and progression.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of people talk about older Langes having Lang bang.
Mm-hmm.
This is essentially just the fix to Lang bang.
The Lang bang preventer.
This is super nice on the shins. It's not aggressive flexing. It doesn't feel like you like hit a brick wall. It doesn't have a blocky flex pattern. It's really progressive, smooth. It's not the most like stout feeling boot in the 130 lineup, but for someone that values a precise fit but also doesn't need to be in like an intense kind of hardcore aggressive flexing boot, this is one of the more solid options.
Yep.
Some of the other things that people notice in Langes when they're new is excess pressure like right in this navicular area. In the liner of the boot itself, and the shell shape itself is a little bit more precise from like the midfoot back compared to the rest of the boot. This area, after a day of skiing, does break in nicely to meet the shape of your foot, and then also getting like an appropriate footbed in there will help to kind of realign your foot to live in the shell more appropriately. As far as length goes and how these boots differ from one another, and even though these are all the same size, the Lange again does feel a little short, and it can feel a little more vague in the heel compared to some of the other options out there, and that is due to the softer material used in the liner.
Yeah.
So like if you're a skier that values like a really firm, over-compressed feel in the heel, or you like a more precise kind of isolated squeeze on the Achilles or down low in the heel pocket, the Lange might not be the best option.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for something that kind of just wraps around the heel with like a gentle squeeze, then you would go here.
Yeah.
Across the instep for an LV boot, the Lange Shadow is the most generous across the instep and on top of the foot, which is probably why Garrett skis in it.
What do you mean?
You got a big instep.
No, I don't. But yeah, not really biting in the ankle. There's no pinching back there, but I can feel the boot. It's not like it's a sloppy fit back there.
No.
But it's not aggressively tight, and it is vague would be a good word to describe it.
Yeah.
But
and that's where personal preferences come into play in ski boots. Like you could have you could be after looking for a low volume boot, and then you could sit down with a boot fitter and your foot might be as stable and secure in everything that you try on, but if you just like a softer, more supple feel in a liner,
yep,
Lange would be your best bet.
Bingo.
One notch over, you get into...
Before we move on from that,
yeah,
my question that I don't know if you have a good answer for, but why is this a sated 97 last?
The measurement on the interior of the wall is 97 millimeters across the ball of the foot. Lange is known for 97, like in their LV. It's not it's not just like a marketing thing.
Yeah.
But
I guess
like,
that was my question.
they just build 97 millimeter lasted boots. The shell wall is thicker in that boot compared to everything else that we're going to try on.
Yeah.
But don't let the fact that that's a 97 millimeter last have
Make
you
you
feel
think
that
it's tighter.
yes, because you can feel it's not.
Yeah.
And compared to the others, that's a little bit more generous across the ball of the foot, even though it's stated more narrow.
Yep.
Anything else you'd like to learn about your boot?
I love the tip of the cap to the old country right there.
That is nice. A little Italy.
Yeah. I feel like you would like that.
Yeah,
you know?
these are made in the North End.
Frank DiPietro made these.
It's Di Pasquale.
Sorry, Frank.
Shout out.
I'm going to get whacked.
All right. Let's move one notch over.
All right.
This is
Do you like what I did over here? Like making some room
That's nice.
after the sock ordeal.
This is the Fischer RC4 LV 130. This is a brand new boot for this season. Fischer fully overhauled their LV lineup for like boots that more recreational skiers might be looking for. Some of the things that they're touting is a completely gapless kind of connection between the lower part of the shell and the upper cuff, which allows for more rearward stability. So the boot it's less easily like kind of knocked around, is most notable in like kind of heavy wet snow conditions.
Yeah. That's just going to make it feel more damp back there.
It makes the whole boot feel more damp in general, but that's not really why it's feeling more damp. It's more damp because of the plastic that's used.
Okay.
Again, for a 130 boot, not the most difficult boot to put on. Does have a BOA on it, which in the LV category, like it's just Ultra. And this guy that have the BOA on them that we carry, stepping into this boot, some of the first things you notice is compared to the Shadow, it is a little bit more precise around the Achilles. So it feels like it has to get molded before. You don't need to slide that on, dude.
I want to.
It feels a little bit more precise back there. This does have a cam style strap, which the Shadow does not.
Yep.
The cam style straps you'll find on LV boots or 130 flex boots are really just because it's not a consumable like Velcro is. You're making a lot of noise.
Sorry.
You're a noisy boot putter on her. Compared to the Shadow on the toes, this is less noticeable pressure. So less noticeable pressure directly on the end of the toes, still snug on the pinky toe and big toe to like provide kind of that connected feel. So as you roll skis over, toes don't feel like they can lift up. There is a little less vertical toe space in this boot compared to the Lange.
Yep.
And then again, this portion of the boot is really where you're getting a little bit more of like an intense squeeze around the lower part of your heel and then on the Achilles itself. As far as like the liner feel itself, it's definitely more firm in the back of the boot. It's roughly the same amount of pressure through the midfoot and forefoot as the Lange boot. And then on top of the foot, more pressure downwards compared to the Lange. Roughly the same across the instep itself. But with this BOA, you can continually crank this if you really want to start to feel that instep squeeze. The downside compared to like a buckle boot in an LV is it's harder to create two zones of pressure directly on top of your foot. So like it's getting a little tight on my instep right now, but I wish it was a little bit tighter on my toes. And that's just one of the downsides to a BOA living in that zone. It still wraps around the foot really well. As far as the flex goes, this is a stronger, more stout and kind of robust feeling boot than a Lange. It does have a little bit more of like a blocky progression in flex. I skied this for a handful of days last year. Compared to the Lange boot that I skied a couple seasons ago, it does feel stronger. It definitely is stiffer like laterally as you go to tip skis over. One of the things that I do like about this is it's a lot warmer than the other stuff that we'll talk about as we get down that way. And a lot warmer being kind of in quotes. Like this would be a good boot for you. Softer on the shins. Fischer this year introduced.
What does that mean?
It's a subtle dig.
Softer on the shins?
Softer on the shins.
And what the warmer thing? Are you saying I get cold feet?
I do. I've heard you out there.
Dude, I wear my Nike socks with holes in them.
You ski in that 29.5 because you're cramming as many toe warmers into the boot as you can. One of the things that Fischer did this season is they focused a lot of effort into building a better liner. Their liners in the past were not bad liners. This is just much better. You have a D30 tongue, which as you flex harder into it, the material also kind of stiffens up. It's very similar to Evo Shield,
Oh, hell
like
yeah.
in baseball.
I'm wearing one right now.
Yeah, you don't never leave home without it. And what that does is like provides a really kind of even pressure across the shin, and again, just trying to mitigate any sort of chance of shin bang, pressure points on the shin, and just allow it to feel more solid and connected from
Which I'm feeling none of.
the lower part of the leg. Right. As far as like a easy on off situation goes, this is still a pretty easy boot to get in and out of. A plastic that's a little more reactive to ambient temperature. They still advertise these boots as vacuum fit. Really all that vacuum fit is, and this is a question we get a lot of the times, is just their version of saying the boot shell can be heat molded. All of these boot shells can be heat molded. Atomic calls it Mimic. Tecnica calls it CAS. Salomon calls it custom shell. The nice thing about plastics like this is you're not going to fight the boot to get in and out of it, which is often not the case for higher performing boots. As far as the liner goes, if you were to see this versus the older version of a Fischer liner, there's a lot more tech going on in here. You have that D30 tongue, and then I don't know if Kirby you can get in there, but you can see that this portion of the heel pocket, there's a ton of added material around the Achilles and down low in the heel that provide like that extra squeeze that you don't get in the Shadow. Adjustable tongue.
That's going to mold out pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, it'll meet the shape of the foot effectively with just liner mold and then a handful of days of skiing.
Yeah.
I skied this out of the box without molding it. First couple of runs,
Zero mold.
You could tell it was definitely snug, but then just
You're
throughout
so
the course of the day, thank you. Throughout the course of the day, it does start to open up and feel more like the shape of your foot. Questions about the Fischer at all?
No, not really. Impressive.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a good boot.
I think this was one of our more surprising new boots for this year.
They were due for a good LV that worked for a wide range of skiers.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I'm trying to think. But well, actually, vacuum fit, to clarify, is not much different than a shell bake.
No, it is a shell bake. So years ago, Fischer had real vacuum fit boots that you would heat up the shell and then you would throw the person's foot into the boot on the vacuum machine, and then you would put airbags essentially around the boot itself and then squeeze the boot. So anywhere it was too tight, the pressure from your foot would prevent it from collapsing in on the bones.
Right.
And then
it's like molding a mouth guard.
Exactly. The downside to older vacuum fit boots was it was good at getting bigger. It wasn't super good at getting smaller. So a lot of times people would end up in like kind of awkward fits, and we'd still have to end up doing boot work down the road. So now we just do a shell bake and get you into a boot that is precise enough that we don't have to make it smaller and just trust in the expansion process that can happen to these shells and liners.
Cool. And then this.
What about it?
You guys see that? Is that going to make you go faster?
Mostly.
It's very hard.
That adds like 10 horsepower. It's like putting a Salt Life sticker on your truck.
So it makes you really cool too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
More horsepower.
All right.
The Alpha.
What? Me?
yeah. You'd be beta. Kirby would be Sigma. That's like a compliment.
So does that mean you're Alpha?
No.
Delta. Out of the pack?
The Salomon Alpha boot is their low volume fit.
Should I put this on? Or?
We'll start with the liner here. This is one of the big updates that they've done to these boots over the past couple of seasons. Different from both the Fischer and the Lange boot, you have like a much more rigid construction to the liner. There's like a plastic membrane that lives on the outside of this liner. This does get heat molded. Oftentimes when people throw these on, you can feel like kind of inconsistencies in fit around your foot, particularly where bones in the feet live, especially from like this region of the liner itself. Through the midfoot and forefoot, even though it's still an LV boot, this does feel the most generous in length out of everything that we're going to try on today because of this softer material that's used on the end of the toe box. Lange boot, we talked about that material being kind of rigid and firm. It does take a little bit to break in. So if we have someone, and honestly, I like this boot because I ski in a 26.5, my feet measure 26.9. Out of the box, this doesn't feel like there needs to be any break-in done. So it's a little bit more of a generous fitting in length boot. And Salomon's known for that across their entire line of boots.
Yeah. And I'm letting you cook here, but I'm sure you'll get to the heel pocket on this boot is pretty dense.
Yes.
There's foam in there that kind of makes it feel like your foot's not all the way back in the boot.
Yeah.
That is one of the consistent observations I get with people trying these on out of the box.
Yeah, they call it like it feels like a floating sensation.
Yes.
Like a lot of people
feels like your heel's
heel
not all the way down. Which is fine to do, right?
What's that? Bang your heel back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell people to do it
when the liners get molded and that material becomes a lot softer and more malleable, that's really what's going to allow that heel to set into the back of the boot. And then again, like really just skiing in them is going to help to open that up to fit more appropriately. As we've worked our way down this line, the boots are also getting a little bit more difficult to get in and out of. Different from the Lange and the Fischer, Salomon uses the same blend of plastic across the instep. They don't soften anything there. It is a higher MPa rated plastic. It's a little less reactive to ambient temperature. So getting in them is a little bit more of a struggle. Still easier than the other boots that we're going to talk about. And the nice thing about these is for an LV, still not an intense fitting boot. This does have a more precise cuff than the Lange boot, the Fischer boot, and then even as we get down this way. So skiers that don't have a ton of mass or like a really large calf muscle tend to like the more connected feel.
Skiers who skip leg day.
Yeah, skiers who skip leg day.
Like yourself.
Me. Like a boot like this because it fits really snug here without having to make any adjustments to the cuff or like without having to add an egregious amount of volume reducers or cuff spoilers to the back.
Yes.
It's tough to tell like on camera, but flexing into this boot right now, it does feel more solid out of the box compared to either of those. It doesn't move quite as much. A lot of skiers, or when we're doing boot fits, a lot of people like the really kind of quiet and smooth flex that this has.
For sure.
It doesn't feel like the boot's moving a lot as you engage the front of the boot.
Right.
With that, though, it does feel a little bit more harsh on the shins.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can kind of expect some things like that in a boot that fits a little bit more aggressively like these. And then what Garrett was talking about is right now, like my heel doesn't feel like it's seated all the way in the back of the boot. So when you do that molding process, we would prop you up like onto a 2x4 just to help to force that heel into the back, and then really just skiing in it and spending time kind of in this engaged athletic stance will allow that to feel more appropriate.
Right.
Again, length, this is definitely more generous in length compared to the other two. It's a little bit tighter across the instep than the other two that we've talked about. But just a really solid kind of middle of the road. You're not looking for an aggressive fitting LV, but you need something that feels a little bit stronger, more stout than a Shadow or an RC4.
Yeah.
You don't need to slide that on.
Well, I was going to pull this out.
Yeah.
Because I have two comments. Part of why it feels more stout has to do with the plastic not adapting as much too.
You meaning like not reacting as much to ambient temperature?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So it's going to feel stiffer in the store. Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
Because that can be a little deceiving.
True. And then real quick, like with that, even though it feels stiffer in the store, I would argue that the Fischer is a stronger boot.
That's what I was going to ask.
It's heavier. It does have a thicker shell wall. It does stiffen up more out in the cold. So like if you had a Fischer on your right foot and a Salomon on your left foot and you were to be skiing the same run, like you would notice that that when you have that Fischer, like when you're making that turn in the Fischer boot with the downhill boot, it just feels like it's a little bit more stable through a turn shape, where a boot like this, you're getting a little more feedback because of that higher MPa rated plastic, and it just feels a little bit more lively. That's, again, a personal preference thing. Like, if you want a boot that provides a little more feedback and does feel more energetic, not quite as damp, this is a really good option for that.
There you go.
Your brother skis in these.
Yes, he does. Shout out Shaq Finn. Actually, both my brothers ski in those. I was kind of jealous. And then me and my sister ski in Shadows. I was going to say some of that harshness on the shin out of the box is because Salomon uses this material, this like plastic covering on the tongue of the boot. I have found that can be a little bit bitey. Like
it needs to be molded.
It needs to be molded, and it just becomes more forgiving as you ski in it and it gets molded. So like a lot of that stuff will go away. And then that can cause a little bit of awkwardness on top of the foot and make this tongue of the boot feel really like seamy. Like they're
seamy.
I'm using terrible adjectives right now, but that's how I do it. That's my style. But that stuff does get better as the boot breaks in.
Is like the opposite of seamless seamful?
No. Seamful sounds too positive. Wait, I guess that.
No.
So this would feel pretty seamful.
You can just tell that this is. So what Garrett's trying to highlight here is.
I would argue that I'm doing it successfully.
It's more of a U-shaped tongue than the other two boots that we've tried on.
There you go. U-shaped.
So it goes deep.
What a genius.
It goes deeper.
That's so much better than seamy.
It goes deeper onto the shin. Again, as Garrett was saying, like when we do the molding process and you ski in this will open up to meet the shape of your leg more effectively.
And this U-shaped plastic,
yes,
is really cupped out of the box. It's just going to kind of ease up.
Yep. Which is also why it's important to wear a good ski sock.
Ease up. I feel like we haven't really highlighted the difference between 120s and 130s.
Yeah, so all these boots we have in 120s and 130s, the real kind of objective difference between them is as you go down in flex, the materials in the liner do get a little bit softer, more supple, more of what like a intermediate-ish skier might appreciate, or a skier that doesn't need an overbuilt liner. And then the 130 obviously just uses stiffer shell plastic and then more dense materials in the liner.
Yep.
And that's relatively true for every boot that's out there. The Tecnica Mach 130 LV is a brand new boot for the season, same name as the previous version. Some of the updates they made to the LV line across all flexes is more generosity across the instep. It's about 3 millimeters taller than the previous version of the Mach. Slight liner update to make the shin a little bit more like forgiving, less of a harsh feel there. And then on the 130, you have a different cuff material that's used. So it's not a PU lower and a PU upper. It's a PU lower, polyurethane. And then you have a Gorillamid cuff, which gives the boot like a lighter, kind of snappier feel. It rebounds more quickly. And then Tecnica's like big kind of technology behind the Mach boots is T-drive. It's quite similar to Lange's suspension blade. They're just trying to increase the amount of leverage you have over the top of the boot while also maintaining a really solid connection to the boot. And then this T-drive is really where you're still maintaining a ton of the power that this boot has, rearward stability that the Machs are known for, just in a much more like modern way to do it. The old version of the Mach also had T-drive. It was just the first generation of T-drive. This, like a lot of the concern that Mach boot skiers have had since the introduction of this boot is, did they make it lower performing? And we talk about this like with new skis, new boots. They did not dumb down any of the performance aspects of this boot compared to the previous version of the Mach. It more so just feels a little different and skis a little different. Compared to the previous version of the Mach LVs, this is not quite as damp, but I would argue it's just as powerful. So you're not going to feel like you're taking a step backwards in how limitless the boot feels. It's not going to change what skis this boot can drive confidently.
Yep.
You just have a boot that is more lively, more energetic, and then a lot more friendly to fit out of the box.
Yep.
Compared to the other three that we've tried on already, it's a little more difficult to put on. Not an insane difference there. And then you can kind of hear and feel this cuff being a much different material than the other boots. Even though this is more generous fitting in instep pressure compared to the previous version of the Mach LV, it is still more precise fitting than the Shadow, the Fischer, the Salomon, and I might even argue that it's a little more precise fitting than the Ultra. What you get in this Mach that's different from the other three boots is now you've traded out like softer materials and liner to much more dense kind of firm materials that are used in this Tecnica boot. So the Achilles pressure is much more pronounced than it is even in the Fischer. It feels a little more snug down low in the heel than the Salomon. Length is a little bit more precise because of more dense materials used there, and because that heel pocket is tighter out of the box, it's forcing that foot to live a little more forward. So a lot of people, when they try this boot on, if we're trying them on next to...
Sorry.
Okay.
You can't tell me those buckles don't have a nice snap.
They got a nice snap to them. Snap finish. What a lot of people notice if we're doing a boot fit and we've tried on the other boots is this is going to feel shorter out of the box immediately. So that pressure doesn't really ease off the toe until you get into a ski stance. And when you stand straight up, like even on my foot, like I can feel tension there. That tension does go away, and Tecnica has made some improvements in the materials used on the end of the toe box to like improve that out of the box fit, but it is just a little bit more of a precise fitting boot.
Yes.
Still flexes really smoothly. I'd say like the flex of this is most similar to the Alpha. And then as far as just straight up, like as far as how stout the boot feels out in the cold and when you're pointing them downhill and you're clicked into skis, this is more powerful than the other three boots that we've talked about. A lot of that can come down to like that more lively kind of snap and rebound that Gorillamid cuff provides. The PU lower keeps things kind of supple around the foot. You still have a relatively damp feel. This is just a little bit more energetic, especially compared to the previous version of the Mach. As far as warmth goes, compared to the other three, this is a little bit of a colder boot, just flat out. When you replace softer materials and some insulation that lives in the other boots with more dense kind of performance-oriented materials, you're losing that insulation aspect, you're losing that kind of comfort feel, and you're replacing it with more of like a raw, almost Spartan feel that provides really good skiing and performance. You're just trading off some comfort.
Spartan, huh?
Yeah. You're trading off some comfort as far as warmth, and that's really it, though.
This is Sparta.
Yeah, this is Sparta. Questions about Mach, Garrett?
No, I wasn't just gonna let us breeze by the fact that you just use Spartan to describe it.
This boot also has a cam strap. There is some elasticity to this cam strap, which makes the top of the boot feel like a little more forgiving as you flex into it. It doesn't feel like you just hit a brick wall.
That's nice.
In the previous version of the Mach boot, it was more of a blocky flex and progression into that power band, which is why it could feel kind of harsh on shins at the end of the day. This does not have that same characteristic. It's a lot more smooth. It's just a more well-rounded kind of finished product that still skis as well as the previous version. It's just, we've said it a bunch of times with skis and stuff, it's just a more modern way of building a ski boot.
Yeah, and I would say that the upgrades for this year kind of place it more appropriately in this category.
Definitely.
Rather than the old boot skied like a Remedy or a Redster.
Yeah, it's just a little bit, it makes a little bit more sense in the way that Tecnica has kind of built out their lineup of boots. On these liners, you can see that the tech is a little bit more apparent than on the other three boots we've talked about. You have grindable foam on the outside. It is shaped out of the box to align with ankle bones.
Yep.
It does move a little bit, and if we needed to make modifications, this is one of the easiest liners to work on because we can actually grind material away. On the 130, you do have like a wrap of carbon up on the top of the cuff to give it that more solid fit and feel. The 120 version does not have that, and the 120 version of this Mach LV also uses more supple materials in the liner just to kind of line up with what a 120 flex skier might feel. You have adjustable tongues, you have material that you can remove from the tongue, so Tecnica kind of is leading the charge in customizable liners. I'd say they're as close and probably right in line with how customizable Atomic liners are, just in a different sense.
Yep.
Atomic uses a ton of heat moldable materials. It's nice here that you have grindable materials, so if you need to make really subtle changes in minor areas, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You also have grindable boot boards in here. Tecnica does a really great job highlighting typical problematic areas that most people have on their feet.
Oh, this is what I thought you were going to miss.
It's where the bones in your
You don't
feet
miss,
live.
folks.
So ankle bone, this is dimpled, inside ankle bone, navicular area, first met head, fifth met head. That just allows, honestly, like our job to be easier when it comes time to modify a ski boot if necessary. We already can see on the shell where these bones live.
Yeah.
And it's just a good kind of call out to the fact that these boots are kind of thought through from top to bottom. Questions?
Well, I was so excited to ask you what the dimples were for.
I know. Sorry, I kind of stole your thunder with that one.
Yeah, it's okay.
The 120 flex version of this Mach LV does not have the Gorillamid cuff. It does have a PU cuff.
Gorillamid?
Yeah. It's
a
a
good
it's a,
rap name.
It is. DJ Gorillamid.
Except you don't want mid in your name.
Yeah. So it would be
Grilla hype.
Gorilla top.
Skrilla.
Yeah, so the 120 flex version of this boot does have a PU cuff that gives it more of like a traditional ski boot feel. That 120 will feel noticeably softer in store. As far as performance goes between the 120 and the 130, it's not a major difference. It's really just a more comfortable liner in the 120 and then a more like forgiving flex profile because of the fact that the cuff is polyurethane, more of a traditional blend of polyurethane.
Yep.
Also on the 120 flex version of the Mach LV, you don't have the cam strap, you just have a traditional Velcro strap. How'd we do?
Good. How about the, is the T-drive the same?
On the 120 and the 130, yes. All the Mach LVs for this year got
I think that
TD2.
goes to show that the difference in the way they ski is not going to be
compare like the 120 and the 130,
a huge jump.
or the old version versus the new version.
The 120 and the 130.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted me to say that.
No, it's good. I like it. Pop that off. Make all your noise.
Dude, don't pat me on the back like that. It's degrading.
So quickly, we'll get through Ultra. This does come in two setups. Garrett has the buckle upper, BOA lower. I have the dual BOA option here. Construction is the same aside from the different closure systems. Liners are the same. It's just a different way to close the boot. Compared to previous versions of the Ultra, the only difference in actual construction of these guys is they added power ankle lock to the liners. So that is more dense materials that live around your ankle bones, give it a more solid fit and feel in the heel, and it's also much more anatomically shaped than previous versions of the Ultra. Previous version of the Ultra, we would warn everyone that you're going to feel odd pressure points on the tips of your ankle bones. That's essentially gone, and it's much more firm and solid. It feels like a little bit more of a well-rounded fit out of the box. This is the more difficult boot to put on of all the LVs out there. It's because of the highest MPA-rated plastic that's used. Still not impossible to get on. In length, this is going to feel the shortest. In width, it's going to feel the most narrow out of the boots that we've talked about today. The BOA on the upper versus the buckles allows this BOA boot to wrap a little bit tighter without creating bars of pressure that you can get in the buckle boot. And then the lower is exactly the same. And quite honestly, with how precise this boot fits, like you really don't even need to buckle or BOA them super tight.
Yep.
This is going to feel the stiffest in store. Again, like that highest rated MPA plastic. This is kind of how the boot feels out in the cold. It's not harsh on the shin. Atomic does a really good job with their liners to wrap around the shin and keep everything feeling solid without creating odd pressure points. But this is a boot that you really don't have a ton of length in general. You have no generosity in length. It is the tightest, most narrow through like the tips of the toes. Like I've got pressure on my pinky toe and big toe. There is still a little bit of vertical wiggle room that like some skiers just value the ability if you're on the chairlift and it's 5 degrees outside, like you can still feel that your toes exist.
Yeah, wiggle your piggly wigglies.
And this will feel the most solid in the heel out of the box. As far as straight up power goes, even though this feels the stiffest in here, I'd argue that the Tecnica and the Fischer are a little bit more stout feeling, more robust, a little more limitless. This, similar to the Tecnica, does have that more lively kind of snap and rebound when you're skiing. It's not quite as damp as the other boots that we've talked about. But if you value just precision and kind of a locked-in feel around the foot, this is the option. You have a heat moldable shell and liner that allows for super easy modification. Warmth is okay for an LV 130 flex boot. It's probably roughly the same as the Tecnica. The Salomon, the Fischer, and the Lange are warmer compared to this. Fire?
Yeah. I mean, my comment on the Ultra would be Atomic did a great job of making this feel less intimidating out of the box.
It's like easier to imagine yourself skiing in it all day, like just right out of the box.
Right. And I think that has a lot to do with the fit around the heel and ankle, specifically the tips of your ankle bones.
Absolutely.
Like you said. But I don't know why you made me get this ski sock if I'm not going to try this on.
Well, throw it on. So what you get in difference as far as the way the boot feels on the cuff and BOA versus buckle is Garrett's going to have an easier time dialing in how tight it is in each of these two zones, where in the BOA, the cuff kind of wraps as one around the leg. So this is a little bit more of like a cohesive wrap. If you're someone that doesn't like a ton of pressure up top, or you don't like a ton of pressure down low and you like these to feel a little bit different, you can fine tune where the pressure lives with buckles a little more easily. With BOA, especially for skiers with not a ton of mass on their leg, it is nice because you get like this kind of enveloping squeeze from the lower part of the calf muscle all the way to above the instep. There's no right or wrong between upper buckle and upper BOA. It's more of a personal preference at that point. One of the things worth noting is with the upper BOA, it does make the boots like ever so slightly more difficult to put on because they have to add some more material to the cuff of the boot itself. But if you're a 130 flex skier and you know how to put boots on, it really is not an issue. Just to round this out before the cameras die, these are all competitors with one another. They're powerful boots, they're stable boots. You can drive any ski confidently with them. It's more of a choose your own adventure and what your personal preferences might be. If you value a little bit more of a supple feel and liner and you don't need a more aggressive fitting boot, you'd live on this end of the spectrum where you have that softer liner material, warmer material in the Lange. Then as you work inwards, the liners get more intense and you lose a little bit of that like comfort feel out of the box. And then they do vary a little bit in length as far as how they feel different from one another. The Salomon being the longest, the Atomic being the shortest fitting. The Lange feels shorter even with that more dense or more supple liner material. But quite honestly, all these boots are worth trying on if you're looking for something that drives skis confidently, you have a more narrow foot shape, or you're a skier that values a little bit more compression around the foot to drive skis and ski well.
Beautifully articulated.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah. Cool.
Sweet.